You want to make some picks on your favorite sports? Check out Underdog's Fantasy Pick'em game, where you can pick higher or lower on between 2 to 8 players and can win up to 325 times your entry by using code Niners when you sign up, and you'll get $1,000 bonus cash and a free pick.
From the alley-oop to Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm ready to talk about the draft, and I'm ready to talk about edge rush targets for the San Francisco 49ers in the 2025 draft. And I know there's a lot of conversation right now, especially with Media Row at the Super Bowl, about Fred Warner and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel talking about Myles Garrett. And that's all well and good. And would I love to have Myles Garrett in San Francisco? I absolutely would love that. Now, that is a different take than what's going on with this right here, where we're going to be talking probably about 11 and 43 and about the potential players that could be targets for the 49ers when it comes to rushing the off the edge. Because if you land Myles Garrett, you're losing the 11 pick anyways, and this is not a conversation that we will have. But as of right now, we don't know what's going to happen. And so the 49ers are planning to get the best possible player they can at 11. Early on, all the push was for the 49ers to get an offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons, Will Campbell. And those guys are still getting mocked to the 49ers when it comes to the national media. Mel Kiper mocking the 49ers, Kelvin Banks Jr., which would be a great selection. But when you look at talent and the way that the 49ers normally trend under this administration towards drafting, a lot of times it's drafting defensive line, interior defensive line, or edge rushers. And that's where there's a premium early on in this draft. I think there's more of a premium of early edge rushers than there are defensive tackles. I think you can find really good defensive tackles in rounds 2 through 4, or even 2 through 5, if you're really searching for a specific scheme fit. I think when it comes to edge rushers, it starts fizzling out when you get to the late 2, early 3, where you start finding that the depth isn't there. So hitting on edge early is going to be important for the 49ers. We're going to talk about a lot of names that are really going to be potential impact players, because there's a lot of players to like, but there's also some players that you wonder who exactly they are. Now, I'm going to be fully transparent. We're not going to go through every edge rusher that could possibly be taken in that area. There's just not enough time. And I am doing full breakdowns on these guys over on Patreon for more in-depth, including film work. You can catch those over on 49ers Cutback Patreon. I'm going to try to give you an overview and talk about these players. Some of them I haven't even got to the film breakdowns yet. I've just been able to view them myself. So this is going to be a fun one. Buckle in. Draft targets for the 49ers. A lot of them at 11, but some could be at 43. The 49ers do decide to go O-line, D-tackle, or they get a wild hair and they go another direction, the way that Matt Mayoko has kind of thrown that out in his first with Tyler Warren. So his first mock draft. So it's going to be interesting. But hang in there. It's going to be a fun episode. I'm looking forward to it. And like always, leave in the comments who you think should be the guy for the 49ers at 11, specifically when it comes to edge rushers. But I'll listen to all, because I'm always curious what people are thinking in different perspectives. But please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet, especially with the big game coming up, bet with Bet Online. The biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means more updated odds and props for Super Sunday. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. We have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online offers you everything and more to enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make the game day action count a little bit more. Bet Online, the game starts here. So there's so many really good, talented players at edge rusher. And so finding the guys that will possibly be there at 11, it could vary depending on what happens early on in the draft. For instance, I do not believe the 49ers have a chance to get Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter, defensive end from Penn State, is the number one edge rusher in this class. And I think he's a top 5 pick. A lot of years he would probably go number 1, except the number 1 team really needs a quarterback. So he could go beyond that. Cleveland sitting at number 2. If they were to trade off Myles Garrett, it would be a slam dunk. Abdul Carter would be the next generation of edge rusher in Cleveland. So I don't think he's a possibility for the 49ers. So the conversation kind of starts after that. And depending on what rankings you're looking at, you're going to get a variety of different players that could be sitting in that sort of area. So it's probably not going to be exactly down the line of what people think when you look at projections. But I'm kind of going to go over some of the guys that I like early on and then kind of talk about some of the guys that maybe I'm a little less convinced on right now. It doesn't mean that I won't come around, but maybe I haven't seen enough film work on them or something just looks a little off. And so I can kind of give a different read on that. So right now, the consensus is that from what I've heard from PFF and what I've heard from a lot of ESPN and others, that the second best edge rusher is either Mykel Williams or James Pierce. And so I want to discuss both of them a little bit. When it comes to Mykel Williams, I mean, Mykel Williams is a freak of nature, 6'5", 265 pounds. He's probably going to run around a 4.6 40 at the combine. Just an absolute monster. And I think if you're looking for a big edge, this is a guy that you could definitely go with. I mean, he's freaked out. He's just huge. But I worry about him being a little stiff with his mobility. I don't always see greatness with him. I don't see a lot of plays all the time being made. And so to me, he's just he's a guy that I like, but I don't love. And so I wonder what the 49ers will feel, because if you're going to be convicted to make one of these moves at 11, it's got to be for somebody that you really love. You see what they got. They got something special about them that you're taking at 11, because there are a lot of special players that you could go with at 11, even at other positions. And so you've got to make sure you're sold. And right now, I'm not sold on Mykel Williams, and I'm not sold on him for the San Francisco 49ers at 11. I like him. I don't love him. It doesn't mean that he's not going to look more fluid when we get to the combine, and maybe some of his technique will get a little bit better and the 49ers will fall in love with him or think that they could get more out of him. That's definitely a possibility. But I just, right now, I don't see it play in and play out from him. So I wouldn't pick him at 11. I would go with somebody that's a little bit more of a fluid athlete. And that's a tough thing, because the dude's a tremendous athlete. Just when I see him rushing the passer, I don't see the same ability that I'm seeing from some of the other guys that are just as freaky and just as dominant when it comes to off the edge. So let's go and talk about James Pierce a little bit. And one of the things that's going to make James Pierce either in or out for the 49ers could come down to weight. Now, when it was at the Senior Bowl, Mike Green was another guy that it was like, okay, what's he going to weigh? Is it going to be 245? Is it going to be over 250? And he hit 252. So depending on what James Pierce hits could determine how many teams are in on him early in this draft. So right now it's projected that he's going to be somewhere around 245 pounds. And at 6'5" frame, that's pretty lean. So he could obviously put on 5 to 10 pounds and still have the ability to really get after the quarterback. So he's somebody that I'm interested in because of that size. And why am I interested in him? Well, number one, you're talking about a guy that's possibly going to clock in the 4.4s coming off the edge. That's extremely athletic and a guy that can put pressure on the quarterback consistently. Now, where you're going to start having your question marks is how well this guy's going to set an edge against the run. So all the things that you like as a 49ers defensive line coach like Chris Kasarik, you're going to like about James Pierce. He gets off the ball quick. I mean, an elite first step. That's something that you like to do. He's able to get around the corner. He bends the corner well, and he does do a great job in almost all pass rush situations, creating an advantage for himself using that speed. His bend and his ankle flexibility are on point. And when you hear my breakdowns, I talk about that a lot. The reason being, when these guys are able to have the ankle flexibility, they can do things like bending the corner and flattening out to the quarterback. if you don't have that bend, and this is some of the things I worry about with a guy like Mikael Williams, is you're not able to turn the corner, and against NFL offensive tackles means you're eventually going to get washed out, pushed out, and allow that quarterback to step up. So that's part of the thing. You see these guys, watch them at the combine. They do the hoop drills, and they're going to run figure eights, and they're going to get around those hoops, and they're going to be picking up something that is displaying to people that are evaluating, the scouts evaluating. Oh, look at the ankle bend. Look at the way he's able to move on his edges, and look at the bend that he has, the ankle flexibility, the hip flexibility to be able to reach and touch something on the ground while he's running around that hoop without losing balance. Those are the keys to being a really good edge rusher, and James Pierce can do that at a high level. So that's something that definitely catches my eye, but you expect that from a guy that's a little undersized to play on the edge, who's using that elite speed to be able to get around the corner. So he also has good handwork. He has a lot of things like that. So that's why I do like James Pierce. My question mark is, can this guy set a hard enough edge in the run game to be a consistent 3-down player? If you have time to develop him, if you have time for him to be more of a situational pass rusher early on in his career, maybe the first year, while you're working on teaching him how to set the edge, getting him into a pro system when it comes to putting on muscle and getting his workouts in, he could be a potential guy that could get better and better at doing that. With that elite speed, he's dominant at getting after the quarterback. So that's why he makes sense for the 49ers, in my opinion, because we've already seen Chris Kasarik be able to take a guy that was known more for speed rush and show them how to set the edge against the run in Robert Beal Jr. Now, unfortunately, Robert Beal Jr. looks like he's lost all speed when it comes to getting around the corner and getting to the quarterback, which made everyone so excited about his GTFO. Well, guess what? If you loved Robert Beal's GTFO, you are going to love James Pierce's GTFO. This guy gets off the ball in an absolute hurry. So the pressures, being able to get around the corner, what he's going to do to offensive tackles in space, the lateral quickness, I think those are all things to like about James Pierce. I think the question marks more come around. Can he hold up when it comes to stopping the run? And that's going to be a big question mark. So we'll remember that. Now, one of the guys that I want to talk about, and I think this guy is an absolute freak, and I got to give credit to my guy, Josh. He's always talking about him in chat. He says his favorite guy, and that is Nick Scorton. And Scorton is really a fun player because when you put on the film, you see a guy with such size that can move really well. I mean, you don't normally see guys like this. He's a freak of nature with the size that he has. So Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M is just an absolute monster and a freak to look at. I mean, the dude is impressive. 6'4", 285 pounds coming off the edge. Now, this is something that everyone liked about Darius Robinson last year. A big, freaked out defensive end that could set the edge, that had some upside when it comes to pass rush. That's not Nick Scorton. It's his size, but Scorton is a tremendous pass rusher. The handwork is so much better. The swim move is way more crisp. He's got an inside spin move that's very phenomenal. I understand why Nick Scorton went from being a guy that a lot of people thought was second round to seeing some people mock inside the top 10. The dude has ability, and I think that he could translate so well into the 49ers 4-3. This guy is rapidly becoming one of my favorites for pick 11 because I just see what he could be opposite of Nick Bosa when you're talking about a guy that gets after the quarterback. Now, with that being said, production-wise was only 5 sacks last season for Texas A&M, but there's so much more potential there. And it's not going to match up with guys like James Pierce or Mike Green, who are having double-digit sacks, and it's not gonna appear like that. But there's other strengths to his game, so you got to remember that when you're talking about the elite pass rushers compared to the complete defensive ends like Nick Scorton. So I think he could catch Chris Kasarik's eye with how he performs, and I think one of the things that's going to really catch everyone's attention if he does what they're thinking he might do at the combine and run in the 4.6s or low 4.7s at 285 pounds, that's when he's really going to get everyone's attention about what he could do off the edge. So I think he's going to have something to watch when it comes to the combine to see what he could be. But you're talking about a guy that's a very good run defender who can also get after the quarterback. And it's the handwork for me. I mean, just violent hands, able to get his when he gets his hands on the offensive tackle, they move. And that's something that's impressive. That initial contact is important. That sets up your whole pass rush. He's got, like I said, a pretty good swim move, a pretty good spin move, and I like that. Plus, he's able to keep his pad level pretty low while keeping offensive tackles' hands off of him. I like that a lot. So he's a guy I like. He does have the power because of the size to be able to win with a bull rush. So if you want somebody to collapse the pocket, he can do that also. Because of his size, he's also a guy you can move in to the 3 technique to rush on obvious pass downs. That's something that he could do. The Yetur Gross-Matos role that they carved out for him, this is somebody that would translate into that in the meantime. He would be a really good player for that. He has a high motor, and he has the ability to keep going nonstop. Just keeps going. That part of it's a Chris Kacerek guy. When you're talking about 49er traits, that's why I like Nick Scorton. You're talking about a guy that can rush the passer, a guy that can set the edge against the run, a guy that can win, whether it's speed or bull rush, but also has a nonstop motor. Those are the types of things that get these guys going. But one of the keys to Nick Scorton being a fit for the 49ers is low pad level. He's 6'4", but he plays lower than that. And that will really get Chris Kacerek's mind going, because when you watch Chris Kacerek's practice early on in training camp, they focus on staying low. And so I like that a lot about him. And I think that he would fit what the 49ers are looking for. I think, a lot of people will think 11 would be high for Nick Scorton. But when you're getting the complete defensive end that you're getting, and a guy that has the ability that he has to set the edge and then get after the quarterback, it might not be. I think there might be tremendous value for Nick Scorton towards the front part of the draft. And that's what you want. You want guys that make a lot of sense for your football team. And I think that he would. And so he's a guy that I really like. Now, another guy that everyone's been talking about has been Mike Green. And of course, Mike Green is the one that impressed everyone at the Senior Bowl by putting Josh Connerly on his backside. And when you're talking Mike Green, you're talking explosive. 6'4", 252 pounds. So, I mean, a guy that's really done a lot. He had 17 sacks last season, 3 forced fumbles, 81 tackles. I mean, so the dude was all over the place. Tremendous athlete coming off the edge. And I think a lot of people were concerned about the weight, but it's definitely better. Now, he's undersized in every other manner. Hands are small. His arms aren't long. His wingspan is small. Like, nothing that you want from an edge rusher on the outside. This is a guy that's got some deficiencies when it comes to physical traits. What he doesn't have deficiencies in is elite speed off the edge, able to bend the corner, the athleticism, the mixture of speed and power. I mean, it is definitely there when you're talking about a guy that can bring pressure off the edge. Now, though he has small hands, he has a tremendous amount of heavy hands. He hits you and people feel it. That's part of the way he's able to win, is being able to get to offensive linemen's chest plates before they're able to get their long arms on him. That's where he can win. So he has a plethora of different moves and counter moves that help him be better and better as an edge rusher. I love the explosive nature on the outside. The speed and everything like that is tremendous. So for me, I'm a big fan of him, and I think that he would fit with what the 49ers want. My questions are, can he hold up consistently as far as a 3-down run defender? Can he hold up holding the edge? I think that's a little bit more of a question mark, but you don't need that in year one. Year one, you've got Yetur Gross-Matos, you've got Nick Bosa. So you do have some guys that can set the edge in the run game. Mike Green would have to get some time in there and work a little bit harder at doing it. But if you're just adding him to the current group, you could easily have, on first and second down, Robert Beal Jr. come in and be your run-stopping defensive end, and Mike Green come in on third downs with Bosa and Gross-Matos and Floyd and just put an ultimate pass rush unit together. Or even when those guys aren't out there, giving him an opportunity to rush the passer from the wide 9 is exactly what he's created for. So to me, I think he's an option. Now, the questions are going to be, What are the concerns with what his off the field issues are? I'm not privy to the information about those, and I don't know how the 49ers are going to feel about that. And I think at 11, that could be really risky. Now, if for some reason he fell to 43 because people were concerned about that, I think in that case, it would maybe be worth it, a little bit, take a chance there. But the 49ers are going to do their due diligence when it comes to off the field issues and concerns about character. And so that's going to be something he's going to have to answer. I can only answer to on the field and what I've seen there because that's what I know about. And the dude is an absolute monster. And we didn't just see him do it at Marshall against mediocre talent or inferior talent. We've seen him do it against other teams as well, like Ohio State. And then the way he did it at the Senior Bowl against guys like Connerly and others, he belongs. This guy's a legit first round potential player. And so it's not ideal height, weight, speed, as far as length, arm length and all that. But he's one of those guys that just gets it done. He's a fun player. I like him a lot. And if you want to have fun, why don't you do Underdog Fantasy's higher lower? Their higher lower game is a great opportunity. All you have to do is download the app. There's a link in the description. You can just click on the link. It'll take you there. You go ahead and you sign up. Use the promo code Niners. You can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick by using the promo code Niners, and you can play in the big game. Now, there's lots of higher lower possibilities. These are the ones that I'm playing this week. I'm playing Travis Kelce to have over 0.5 yards in the game, total yards. That's a give me. I'm automatically going to win that one. So thank you for that. That's available on Underdog. I've got Kareem Hunt going over 45.5 yards, so getting 46. And I'm going with Jalen Hurts getting at least one rushing or receiving touchdown in this game because I think that the tush push is going to happen and Jalen Hurts is going to find himself in the end zone. These are three easy ones that I played that I'm hoping that I'm going to win on, and you can have fun playing and winning too. All you have to do, use the link in the description, download the app, use the promo code Niners, and then you could get $1,000 in free bonus cash and a free pick using Underdog Fantasy's higher lower game. But now we're going to get back to the edge rushers because Mike Green is a good player. But now we're starting to get to a few other guys that I really like. And like I said, I don't want to make this too deep because there's just a lot to go over. And there's a lot more guys to talk about at pick 75, potentially in that 50 range. But a guy that I kind of am looking at that reminds me a lot of Nick Scorton because of his size is there's these guys that are just quick pass rushers, James Pierce, Mike Green, right? These guys that bring pressure off the edge. And then there's these big hosses that you bring off the edge, like Nick Scorton, who have the size and the athletic ability on the outside. Is Landon Jackson out of Arkansas? And when I watched him, it's technical. I like his technique. I like the way he sets the edge. I like the way he plays. When defensive coordinators watch him, they're going to be like, yes, this is the staple kind of defensive end we want. Somebody that can stop the run and get after the passer. And he's a physical freak. 6'7", 280 pounds. He had 6.5 sacks last year for the Razorbacks, 1 forced fumble, 49 tackles, and 28 solo tackles. The guy is an absolute, monster when it comes to size. And I think that's one thing you like. You look at all this stuff, his height, 97 percentile. Some of the other attributes that he has are really good when you're talking about big hands. He's probably going to run a pretty good 40. We'll see where that ends up being, but he might run a 4.6 the same way Nick Scorton could be running a 4.6. But, I mean, the dude is just a complete player. You're talking about a guy when it comes to run defense that was in the top 95 percentile amongst all other prospects in the draft. I mean, that's one thing that stood out to me for sure. This is a guy that's better against the run than the pass, but has developmental pass rush ability. He has that same first step quickness. It's a prerequisite when you're talking about guys this early in the draft, but it's also a prerequisite for playing for Chris Kasarik and the San Francisco 49ers. Your first step needs to be really good. You need to be able to anticipate that snap count, get off the ball. Because of the aggressive style and nature the 49ers play, you have to make up ground. You're playing in a wide 9. You've got to get off quickly to make up ground and cut some of the distance between you and an offensive player. So that's really going to be important. He also has good hands, sheds blocks efficiently. So that's how he's able to be so good against the run, but also be able to hold and keep his ground. Now, another thing I love is the fact when you have that length, you can knock down a lot of footballs, which he did this season. And one thing that we also bring up when we're talking about a guy that fits the 49er scheme, you also have to have a relentless motor. You have to keep going. You have to be able to get after everyone all the time, and he does have that. So it's a dude that I really like. I think that he could be a possibility for the 49ers. I think 11 would be too high for Landon Jackson, but I think this is where we're getting into 43. And if he's still sitting there at pick 43, I think he's going to be a really good possibility for the 49ers because of his ability to set the edge against the run, which is something the 49ers desperately need. They need guys that can do that, but also the upside when it comes to pass rush. I would say Nick Scorton has more upside when it comes to rushing the passer, but Landon Jackson has the ability to set the edge better in the run game than Nick Scorton. So two guys that are pretty much close to the same build, 3 inches in height difference, but same weight. And that is something that's important. They both got, pretty good measurables when it comes to length, arm length, and all that. Landon Jackson, of course, elite when it comes to those categories. Played a lot of time in the SEC. So it's a good player. I would love him at pick 43 for the San Francisco 49ers. That would mean maybe you went somewhere else. Maybe you did go offensive tackle. Maybe you went defensive tackle early on. A guy like Walter Nolan or somebody else will break down defensive tackles along the way. Long time until the draft comes. So we've got a lot of conversation to go when it comes to these guys. And, there's plenty of players that I'm not even going to talk about on this episode that we're going to have to get into that do fit what the 49ers want to do. But I want to talk about one more guy, and it's a guy that's caught my eye. That's why I want to throw him into this conversation. Is a guy that could be that will be available at 43. I highly believe that. But also a guy that the 49ers might do their normal traditional trade up from their 3rd round pick to go get. And the reason I'm saying that is I think this guy could be between 50 and 65 kind of in the draft right now. We'll see what happens. He had a good Senior Bowl and he had some things go his way when it came to measurables. But Donovan Izaraku out of Boston College has become one of my favorite guys. And part of the reason is the way that he rushes the passer. Now, there has been question marks about his size, but at 6'2" and 250 pounds, he has enough size to play the edge. The other thing that really helped Izaraku was the fact that he has 34-inch arms. So it's not like Mike Green where the arms are shorter and some of the measurables don't match up, but Izaraku has the long arms. He still has the explosive nature off the edge. So he's somebody that I really like. I think he's going to run in the 4.5s at 250 pounds. His sack numbers were great last year for Boston College in the ACC, 16.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 80 tackles, 37 of those solo. So when you're talking about that, I mean, a 34 and 4/8 inch arm is elite for a guy that's 6'2". I mean, that is tremendous. So he doesn't have the height, but he's going to have the speed, he's going to have the arm length, and he's going to have the wingspan. He has everything you need to do that. Now, for his size, he was tremendous stopping the run. He's a good edge setter. And a lot of that has to do with leverage, being able to play low but use his long arms. So he's somebody that the 49ers could definitely like when it comes to that. He's also a tremendous pass rusher. I mean, he's a guy that I really like a lot, but it doesn't surprise anyone because, right, this is kind of your normal B.J. Ojolari, Arnold Ebiketie type guys, and those were my kind of guys. So I like those guys a lot. And Izaraku has just been really, really good. So good. And one of the things we're going to talk about, he's got the great bend. He's got the great ankle flexibility. He's able to bend the corner. He's able to get around, and he has the consistent ability to maintain speed through that turn. If you get around the edge, it's great. But if you lose speed, those offensive linemen can push you through or could fall on top of you. But he's able to get around the corner of those guys. So disciplined with his technique as far as setting the edge, using his ability to stop the run. He doesn't bite on misdirection or zone replays. I mean, he is really, really good. I think he could play in any scheme. This is a guy that fits the 4-3 wide 9 that the 49ers run. He could also play an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. Part of the reason I think that he's going to be coveted. So I like him a lot. I think he's a a guy the 49ers would love because of his versatility, his first step, his ability to bend the corner, but also set the edge. I think if you went Walter Nolan or you went somebody else in the first round, I think Donovan Ezeraku could be 43 if you feel that highly convicted about him. But you could probably go somebody else at 43 and then take 75 and potentially another pick and jump up into the third round a little bit higher and potentially get him around 50 to 60. And I think at that spot, it would be a tremendous pick for the 49ers. So I like Donovan Ezeraku a lot. So he would be a guy that I would be interested in the 49ers getting. So we went through a few guys, that I like in this one. Of course, I did omit some guys. I talked about Michael Williams a little bit. There's more guys to get into. These are the guys that have caught my eye early on in the process of evaluating players. I take my time. I've watched a lot of film on these guys, some of them a little bit less than others, as you could kind of see me feeling through the process. But the guys that I've done film breakdowns on over on Patreon, I definitely have a good feel for who they are and if they fit the 49ers scheme. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about guys that might be 49ers picks. As we get closer and we get the combine and we get the speed and we get some of those things out there, I think these guys are going to kind of place themselves where they're at. The film doesn't change, but the idea of where they could go does. So we have to know where they're going to go. But I think these are guys there's some rock solid ability for the 49ers to get an edge rusher in probably the first 3 rounds. I think that's the hot spot to get your edge rushers. I think after that, it gets a little bit more difficult to find a player that can make your roster. These guys cannot just make your roster, but make your roster better. And that's why I think it's important for one of the top 3 picks of the 49ers to go towards the edge. Unless they get Myles Garrett, then it could definitely change up and you don't have to go that direction. But as of right now, we're operating under the assumption they're not going to get Myles Garrett. And I think that's probably a good idea considering there's probably 31 teams that are interested in getting Myles Garrett onto their roster. So let me know what you think about these edge rushers in the comment section. And let me know about the guys I didn't talk about. Is there someone I didn't talk about you want to hear me talk about? I'm really curious what you have to say about that. Or would you not go edge rusher with pick 11 or 43 or 75? I'm curious about that as well. But thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.